Hello.
I'm back.
Peter's back.
With a little color.
You think?
I got a little bit. Yeah.
Really? What did you do? Oh, from going to the game?
No, I was out in the. I actually laid out by the pool, and that helps. Laying by the pool, the reflection of the water actually makes a difference.
You're very white.
Very white indeed, but I can work on that.
Welcome, everybody. It's Monday night, Generational Change. Thanks for joining. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we're live together. We're back together.
Oh, it's just amazing.
It's just so amazing, incredible. What would we do without that opportunity to
and
in the studio?
Yeah, so no, it's all good. So we have some cool stuff to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
But I wanted to touch on this issue with the Haitians under the bridge in Del Rio, Texas, if you don't mind, because this is one of those things where I really do feel the need to point out mass amounts of hypocrisy. I would like everybody to think for a minute what the reaction from Democrats would be if this was happening while Trump was in office.
Oh.
And I want everybody to think about what the reaction is of the Democrats, the fact that Joe Biden's in the office and nothing really. I mean, so we're now going to be mass deporting. There have already been 3 planes of more than 100 people left, have been sent back to Haiti. And this is not how this should work. It's just not how this should work. And I don't know the exact answer, but what I do know is that there's a lot of really smart people that understand these types of issues, economic issues, immigration issues, that can figure something out. That I know. And not only that, but I also know that we do have the resources to not do it this way. We do. We have the resources to not do it this way. We're making a policy choice to basically turn our backs on thousands of people that really need help and need a place to go. We're consciously making a choice to do that. And it's disgusting. It was disgusting with any president sitting in the Oval Office.
Just the images that I saw today of the Border Patrol units on horseback whipping the Haitians. I mean, my goodness, they went bananas when they had what was a deceptive image of a young child that was crying, and they put it on Time magazine. They put it everywhere, and like, look what Trump, not even with the Trump administration, look what Trump is doing.
And by the way, remember that picture was actually from the Obama administration, that picture of that kid.
And the cages as well.
This is right now what's going on under this bridge in Del Rio is outrageous.
Yes.
And it is a glaring sign that we're doing something very, very wrong. That's it.
Corporate media really is, and the narrative that they drive is that Democrats are good, Republicans are evil. But the truth of the matter is, they're both evil.
Yeah, right. If you're capable of turning away people in dire need that are willing to risk their lives, you know what? The majority of people that are there, it's families, women, children. It's families. These are people that are escaping desperate situation. And we're not doing this right, people. We're really not doing this right.
As I said, this is absolutely deliberate. It's being done for a reason. And whether it's because we do need to have, and again, this is the thing, we actually have very strict immigration policies in this country.
Yeah.
So this idea that we're just opening the borders and allowing everybody to run in, it's not like that. But this is, as I said, I even joked about it, as I have on this podcast before. It's like, in a way, you're probably going to need to build a border wall, because if you think it's bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because wait till people literally can't live on the coastlines. You're going to have hundreds of thousands of people running to the border.
Meanwhile,
to go.
South of the border, where they have made criminalizing abortion unconstitutional in their much more enlightened, advanced manner, I really think you're going to end up seeing women from here having to go there to get abortions.
I think that, and apparently I think I read a story earlier today, just briefly, about how there's already been a doctor in Texas who was performing abortions and is already being sued. And so it's already begun. But this is you
know what Bo called it? He called the Republicans getting this. It was sort of like when a dog catches a car and then it doesn't know what to do with it. It's like, now what? Now you're going to it's not going to be manageable. This litigious situation in Texas. It's just not going to be manageable.
Yeah, there's very little benefit that's going to come from this. And again,
Also, what if you get a $10,000 judgment against somebody who has no money?
Well, we'll talk about it. We'll talk.
Good luck to you with that.
We'll talk more about it on Thursday. But apparently, excuse me, Robert Francis O'Rourke is planning to run for governor of Texas. And
good luck with that, Beto.
If somebody who is going to go on national TV and say, you're damn right, we're going to take your guns away, you're not winning statewide office in Texas.
Nope.
So
they will play that clip
over
on a loop.
Over and over again, and you will lose. So if you are thinking that the Democrats are flipping Texas with Robert Francis O'Rourke, it isn't happening. It's not because I'm trying to be a jerk and because I don't like Beto. There are plenty politicians who are, much worse than him.
Oh yeah, he's by no means like horrible. No. I mean, I don't have any real beef with him.
But
there's no there.
If you're in Texas and you're trying to be serious about how you're going to defeat Governor Abbott, and I do think he could be defeated, this is not the answer.
No,
because what you're going to do is the two are going to cancel each other out. You're going to have one side that's going to say, this guy's trying to take your right to choose away. And the other guy's going to say, he's taking your right to choose away. It's a different way. And that's what's going to happen. And in a red state like Texas, no, you need a candidate who doesn't have controversy surrounding them.
That's going to be on a loop like 24/7. That I'm taking all the guns. Like they will use that. As soon as he did that, we were kind of like, yeah,
that's it. That's over.
It.
Done. His political career is done.
Well, it will be an entire commercial of Beto saying, I'm taking your guns. I'm taking your guns. And they will play it over and over and over again. And it ain't going to fly in Texas. It's just not.
No. But we do have some very hopefully promising candidates. In the state of Florida, we obviously have a very Florida-centric show tonight, as Mondays typically tend to be. And in this case, we are really trying to build a bench that doesn't involve what the Democratic establishment chooses.
Basically everything they don't want.
That is a very fair assessment.
That's how I could actually pick a slate of people. I could actually go down and look at whoever the establishment is picking and vote for the other person every time. That's basically how I do that.
Well, considering how much they have lost in the state for so many years, maybe that actually is. Just do the opposite of what the establishment says.
I do, because if the establishment supports them, then they're corporate and they're financed. And look, our state party is supported by Walmart and Big Sugar, and that is not anything.
And that's just where it starts.
Right.
Doesn't mean that's where it always
starts. But that's ultimately why I will not pay to do things with them. I will not go to their galas, their events. I will not affiliate with them.
No,
because
you're supposed to. You support candidates, like you went to Elijah Manley's event the other day.
I did.
That's what we do. And so
we gave our donation to our first candidate.
There you go.
Our very first GenCore account donation was to Elijah Manley, who is running for Florida State House. He's a personal friend and favorite of ours here. Also, I do believe that, and I need to hold on to that.
I hope we don't get any AOC treatment about who we give our money to.
I don't even care. Elijah's the bomb. But here's the thing, people, do what you will. I know that somewhere down the road in my future, that man is going to be in a very influential, powerful position in the universe. And that's just something, right? It's just a question of when. Well, and that's something we need to just, realize. So it's good to get in his good graces.
And so hopefully the guest we are about to bring on is also going to be in a very fortunate position of pulling the levers of power. And this is on the west coast of Florida, which obviously needs it because it is
What
very
area
red.
is 19?
19 is basically Sarasota, Fort Myers, and I think that's basically it.
Okay, so then I'm going to have to find out if this represents Sanibel, because that's my most favorite place.
Well, then you have it on the more recent.
Yes, she's saying it does. So there you go. So now I have a vested interest in
without further ado, Dr. Sidney Bonnier. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. With Catherine Norman, our mutual friend, I believe, has told me that that's how it's pronounced.
Okay.
I've had the pleasure of meeting her once before in Orlando.
Oh, you have? Have we met?
Yes,
Did I meet her? No, have I met her? Oh, okay.
Yes. I have to remember for you, apparently. Without further ado, Dr. Bonnier, if I'm saying it right.
Close enough. I usually, if there's a question, I go, it's Dr. Sidney Bonnier. Hooray, hooray for Bonnier.
Bonnier.
Okay.
See?
It's all right.
Yeah. It's all good.
I'm thinking of bonsai,
It's
there you
That's
go.
a good thing to remember, because I did spend a lot of years in Japan. So,
okay, see, now you know it's not that.
Okay, fair enough. But it's kind of spelled that way. So it's all good. So welcome to the show. It's great to see you again. Hopefully everything is going well on the trail. And obviously it is, I don't believe it's a super, super red district, but it is red nonetheless. So please introduce yourself to the audience, the district you're running in, and, hopefully we're building momentum for a true grassroots candidate that's on the west coast of Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So, like we already said, I am Dr. Cindy Banyai. I am a Democratic candidate for U.S. House of Representatives, Florida 19, and we're actually a little bit south of Sarasota. So we're in Fort Myers, all the way down to Marco Island is how the district is currently drawn. So we have redistricting. But anyway, so that's what we're looking at here. I live in Fort Myers myself. My kids are in public school here. I have a long history working with nonprofits in our region, and I work at a local university here teaching American government and global studies. I am.
Are you in Florida Gulf Coast?
Yes, I am. I am.
Excellent.
I've worked there for many, many years now, and it's always wonderful to help educate our next group of young people to learn to think critically about the world around them. So, challenge as that may be sometimes. And I'm fighting for our water, our health, and our community. Those are my 3 pillars, and happy to talk a little bit more about that. But so very happy to see you guys here today and to have me on the show.
One of the things that we talk about here that's basically the downfall of Florida is overdevelopment, overpopulation. It's out of control. It's just out of control. And one of the reasons, I know you heard me talk, like I have a very strong affinity for Sanibel. I've been going there since I was a kid and I love it there. And one of the reasons that it's awesome there is there's no development there. And you see the difference in how people in certain communities value or don't value the environment. And I'm really curious in your area when you're talking Fort Myers and Naples, it's a lot of development there as well. And there's this huge conflict because all of these city commissions are basically in the pockets with developers. Is this what you're seeing? Is this your experience?
You're not wrong. Yeah, you're totally right. And actually, Sanibel has been a kind of a bastion of conservation when it comes to smart development and limiting the size and the way that businesses are allowed to operate there because of their estuaries, because of their natural barriers to the sea on both sides, because of the other barrier islands around them, because of the importance of the water, and because people come there, like your family and so many people across the United States, because it's a beautiful place and they didn't want it to get overrun with chintzy development like so many other places in Florida. And that is a testament to both local policy as well as the people being concerned about it on the ground. And that's one of the reasons why I lead with our water, because Sanibel has done a good job for a long time with maintaining that environment, less so in some of the other areas, but that still is important to us everywhere in Florida. But, our coastal communities, because that's where small businesses are, fishing, tourism, as well as lots of other things that we come to love and enjoy about our environment. We just don't want it to be overrun because so many people just are developers in the local government or are really good friends with them.
Speaking with Cindy Banyai, said it right that time, who is running for Florida's 19th congressional district. It is a red district. It is not a super red district, but what have you seen is the difference? This is your second time running in this congressional district. And obviously when it comes to running and winning an election like this, it's really all about the independent voters. You have the blue voters who will vote for you. You have the red voters that will vote for your opponent, but it really comes down to getting the independent vote to come to your side. If you could talk about that, Cindy, as well as the impact that a race like yours, where some would say, well, it's really a red seat, why are you doing that? Well, if you're trying to turn Florida blue at the governor and senatorial level next year, you need to have candidates running in races in red areas and turning a lot of votes out that otherwise would not normally be coming out. And that's how you make the difference in such a razor thin, election like the last one we had in 2018. So, certainly if you could share your thoughts on, your second go around and of course the impact of bringing on those independent voters and the impact that could have, not just in your race, but for the statewide races as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I'm most proud of from our run in 2020, even though, like you said, we were a red district, we were a throwaway district to the DCCC and other, powers that be. And they weren't very excited about even having a Democrat in that race, which seemed a little bit crazy to me because we need the dialogue. But one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we were one of only 5 districts across the state to move in the Democratic direction. That's all the congressional districts in the entire state. We were one of only 5 that moved. And it was because of the grassroots campaign that we ran. It was because we were collaborative and worked with other candidates. And it was because we were a trusted voice in the community. And we flipped over 50,000 votes, heavily relying on those independent voters. And we did it on the cheap. We were the lowest cost vote flipper in the state of Florida as it comes around. And I'm really proud of that because we did move, and we proved that you didn't have to be the established candidate. You didn't have to be the perfect person. I'm a mom, and a lot of people, even in this day and age, you'd be surprised how many folks who I would otherwise deem as allies came and said things to me like, oh, you have kids. What are you going to do with them? Why don't you just run when they're older? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why don't I run now? Because I'm a mom and I care about the future of my kids and all the kids in our community. I'm the perfect person to run because I care. I'm not bought and sold by other entities. And it was amazing to see the dissuasion on it. So, you're right in pointing out that these kind of red districts, we actually moved from a Republican plus 13 to a Republican plus 12. That's 1 point, but it's a hard-earned point, according to Cook Political, right? And anybody who's actually run in these tough districts, that was a hard-earned 1 point. And it's important to have the dialogue and, like you said, to get the people going, because if they don't have somebody that they believe in, if they don't believe that anybody's out there fighting for the causes that they believe in, then they're not going to show up to vote. And that's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing you can say about the GOP is that they'll run candidates even in districts they have no chance in. Now, granted, some of them are just doing it for reasons other than trying to be successful in electoral politics.
I think some of them do it because they make an income. They actually get donations and they actually draw a salary from it, and they do it as like a job.
I don't think.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that's why some people do it.
So I don't necessarily, in our experience, we don't necessarily see it as doing that. And both sides do it. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm not naming any names, but, we have a super red district down here that's occupied by Mario Diaz-Balart. And, there is somebody who's running in that district who's trying to turn it into, sort of the same thing. You, on the other hand, are very serious about this. You actually see the value in being that grassroots candidate and making those inroads that are absolutely necessary. So why just give up on something? Why just cast it aside and say, well, it's red, it's plus, it's double digits. Who cares? It's not worth our time. No, it actually is worth your time, because more often than not, almost probably 99% of the time, if it's a heavily gerrymandered district and a representative who's been there for a while, chances are they're not really doing much, if anything, to benefit the area. So what are some of the big issues, let's say the top 3 issues for your district that you're running for, that you not only believe in, but feel that the current representative is paying no mind to whatsoever?
Well, let me just start by saying that I actually kicked off my 2020 campaign to run against the incumbent, Francis Rooney, who was supposed to just kind of roll over. But then our race ended up becoming a melee with 9 Republicans running once Francis Rooney announced his retirement. So our current representative, Byron Donalds, is a member of the Sedition Caucus. His entire job right now is to go to Washington, D.C. and vote no on everything, and to get himself on Fox News to talk about things that are completely unimportant to anybody in Southwest Florida. He's been leading this ridiculous push against critical race theory. He's been extremely anti-mask, anti-vaccine, and then he even weighed in on the Nicki Minaj thing, causing him to be named almost the biggest loser in the state, according to Florida Politics this week. Okay,
and that's a big. People do not realize how low that is. Like that's like, I mean, we've got some real losers here, people.
Yeah, right. To be the biggest loser among
that's what I mean. Like that's
he went on Fox News to talk about it, and it was like so bizarre, and so that's who we have. Somebody who's got, when he was in the Florida legislature, had an F on the environment, and knowing that water is a big deal. That's the thing that I lead with. It is the one bipartisan issue we have. Everybody agrees that we need clean water for environmental reasons, for health reasons, and for business reasons. And so it's the unifying thing. He is wholly funded by sugar. He's got both.
I was going to say, how much big sugar money does he get?
Well, he is sugar man now. He really is, because not only does he have all the Florida sugar companies, but he's actually drawn in additional dollars from national PACs related to sugar operations outside of Florida. So yeah, so he's very much in it, but he's got all the big bad guys. Okay, he's got Koch brothers, he's got Exxon, he's got banking industry, insurance industry, every single big bad corporate sponsor that you can imagine has given him money. So he's 100%.
So how can you differentiate that from like ours? Our representative is a Democrat, and she takes from all of those same things.
I'm sure. Cindy would be the first to say that not all Democrats are creative.
Well, of course not. But that's just, I want people to recognize that. Yes. Cindy's here talking about her Republican incumbent who takes all this money from all these nefarious sources, and yet our Democrat here does the same. I just think it's people need to know that.
And you know what? I'll tell you one thing I will say about that is because of that kind of thing, because there aren't more Democrats standing on their principles in opposition to this kind of corporatocracy that we're seeing in the United States, it's very easy for people to just dismiss that kind of claim. And that's what happened in my district. So I actually did, you've probably seen memes and stuff like this where like politicians should wear tags of all their donors. Just like
I did it.
I did that. I made a whole graphic.
That's awesome.
Every big bad donor that was in his bank account, right? And I thought, this is great. This is like, I'm going to live the meme moment. They're going to see it. They're going to get it. But the funny thing is they go, well, how much, what did you take? I'm like, nothing. Pull my FEC reports. They don't know that. But like, they assume that every politician is on the take.
Yeah.
And that's what's so disappointing when people are not standing principled in opposition to that type of influence.
And I think because it's such an anomaly, that was always the thing I truly believe is why there was so much disdain for Bernie, because he was the person who was not taking that money. And it's like, well, who do you think you are? Everybody else takes corporate special interest money. We're all part of the same hypocrisy. Don't try to be different. That's not how the system works. And it's like, well, look, somebody's got to start somewhere, because if you care about the environment, you care about healthcare, you care about jobs, you care about making sure that we have a sustainable planet for hopefully generations to come, you can't be a hypocrite about this stuff. And I think more and more people are starting to recognize that. And I think this is also the start of, one of the, hopefully the future conglomerate movements that we can build in the state of Florida. Because as you know, the state party, the DCCC, they don't exactly answer to the will of the people. So we are at a situation right now where, we're scrambling in this state. We're not really as cohesive as we should be, but I think we can really start to build this non-corporate movement. And that's why it's so important that you are running for a congressional seat in an area where they're not taking it seriously. But that's also opening up the door of opportunity for a lot of us who are trying to appeal to people and say, listen, I may not be the stripe that you want, but I can assure you that I'm not bought. And that's more important than anything else.
It is. People like that. You know what we found when we were campaigning, and you probably have found this too, people don't expect you to get them everything they want. They expect somebody who's going to fight for what they want and who's going to be transparent about what they're doing. And when you do those things, people understand that you're not getting everything you want. It's like sort of like the dishonesty and the filth of it all that has so many people defeatist.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that we have to be the type of regular people in our community to bring it back down, right? I think that one of the things that's been very interesting for me in my campaign is that in our district, they've never seen a candidate like me. They've never seen a candidate who just drops their kids off at school in the morning, or who, goes to the YMCA and works out, or goes to the grocery store and buys their own food. We've had so many people who've self-funded and been really, really well connected in some way, shape, or form that it's really bizarre to have somebody who's just a regular person and who's worked for the community. And that's why I also value so much this campaign that we're running here, because it matters. It matters to have regular people out there and to be accessible and to be real, because the only way that we're going to be able to cut through the noise and tell people, no, really, I don't have any corporate masters. I'm really just here, is to live it every single day, to be that authentic person who's genuinely there fighting for the community. And I'll tell you, I've even met people that I disagree with that believe that matters.
Oh, we have that. That was what I get from our Republican friends. We have a lot of people here that know that they don't agree with me on things, but they just like the fact that I'm a real person and that I'm not bought.
The big difference with the GOP and the Democrats is that when it comes to the general election, the GOP line up against the Democrat every time. That's their one rule. And it's unfortunate that we do have a discombobulated state party in a very consequential state politically, but that doesn't mean that it can't change. And so CindyBanier.com, guys, we hope that you will check it out, learn more about her campaign, follow her on social media, and also get involved. You know, a phone banking session, a text banking session there, even contributing to the campaign goes a long way to helping her build. And again, when you're a grassroots campaign, where does the money go? It goes to a field operation. You want people to be able to get out there and knock on doors on the weekends and weekday evenings. This is a great opportunity to help out a grassroots campaign. And especially for those of you who are hell-bent on flipping Florida blue in 2022, well, let me assure you, you need to flip as many votes as you can in these types of red districts, and it can be done. So, Cindy, final word. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast this evening.
Yeah, thank you so much. You see my website down there, CindyBanier.com. And I just so appreciate Jen for her race and for having me on the show here. You know, I think that the more we get voices out, the better off it's going to be. And I just want to leave you with this, that I am a mom and small business owner, and I am fighting to create a Southwest Florida where the sun shines on everyone.
That's awesome.
Here comes the sun.
We are going to, coming after January, start doing candidate panels. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do state.
Yes.
Like we'll have all of our Washington people on, all of our Florida people on, and just sort of do like state. So we'd love to have you back as we get closer and talk some more.
Beautiful. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
have a wonderful
Cindy.
evening, Cindy. Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
So she's obviously great, and
the truth is,
chance to meet her before.
The premise to every single person that comes on, we only platform people that are non-corporate people. So we are not going to ever we're not going to platform someone that we would ever really ever find repugnant. So that's not going to happen.
That's fair too. But then
it isn't, and we're not partisan.
Anybody who's running a non-corporate campaign is probably not going to do that. And even any of the sitting congressional representatives who may come on, you would think that is something that is important to them. But of course, it's going to be a lot more important to get the full scope of things, because the gentleman we are about to bring on is somebody who shares a lot of commonalities with Jen. He is an attorney. He is a content creator as well. But he is in one of the reddest areas in the entire state of Florida. He is right by where Bo, the fifth column is.
Everyone knows how sweet I am on Bo.
Yes. So,
I do love me some, but I can't help myself. And I'm telling you, it never fails every day. Well, howdy there, internet people. It's Bo again. Every time I respond to my out loud, hi, Bo, every single time. It's bizarre. I don't know who am I talking to? But
Bo's the guy out in the woods, and Farron is the guy in the office. So we've got the next mix and match between the two.
I got to say, this is something, and I've never met Farron. I've always liked his show. I've always liked him. And this is why. He is the exact right amount of angry. It's reasonably angry and professionally stated. And I guess that's why I like it.
Well, I think that's, if you could take that as the best possible compliment, Farron, I guess that's the way it would work. Welcome to Generational Change. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you all very much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Now you're so seemingly nice and calm. I'm so used to seeing you on it, but I do like that. I like that you speak out without ranting and raving like a belligerent lunatic, and you actually are able to make, coherent arguments, which is, I appreciate, because there's so many people that don't.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the things we do is, nothing. A long time ago, we used to do these every morning, and I'd write them out, read it off a teleprompter, and then finally one day I just said, you know what, screw it. I don't like this. I just want to be able to just say whatever I want to say, and it's so much better that way, just getting on there, and that way you can have that emotion. I mean, I think once or twice there's been videos where I got really emotional, actually talking about a family whose child was denied life-saving thing, and actually almost came to tears in the video. The family that I was talking about actually reached out to me, thanking me for their story. So I do get to have that emotion. I get to have the sadness. I get to have the anger. And a lot of times too, just the humor, because everything is so dumb. I mean, everything is so dumb right now that you have to sometimes just sit there and just say, what in the hell is happening? Why is this even a thing that I have to talk about? Because that's what like half of the news is right now, is just stupid things from stupid people that's distracting us from real things that we need to be talking about.
Well, there's definitely the dumbing down of society that has happened over the past, it's been decades coming, but obviously it's been accelerated significantly since W. Bush became president.
I think people can lay it on Trump all they want to. I'm sorry. The dumbing down really did start a long time before that.
Definitely.
And it just gets, but again, as Trump said, I love the stupid people.
Yeah.
I love the stupid people. They're great people. And it's like, well, it works for them. But the truth is, we've really got a lot of problems, and it's sinking us deeper and deeper into the abyss. Now, of course, we're down here in Southeast Florida. Things are a lot different up in the Panhandle.
Where are you? Are you in Tally?
No, I'm in the Pensacola area. So this is District 1, Matt Gaetz territory. It's pretty.
Talk about stupid stuff going on.
Farron, from a perfect, again, we get the Bo perspective from the rural perspective, from the professional perspective, because again, Gaetz is just he's sort of that poster child for just a list of the representatives who, again, is a total product of nepotism. He absolutely does not belong in any position of power whatsoever. He is the quintessential frat boy who was just born on third base.
He's a farce.
He thought he hit a triple to get there. So what exactly is it? Is it really just the Gaetz name that just rings so true in the Panhandle, and that's essentially why he's there? Where would you say that a lot, because Gaetz really does represent a lot of the issues we are facing. So what would you say it's like in the Panhandle as far as why that guy sits in Congress, despite the fact that he's a total buffoon?
We have a lot of just hardcore Republicans in this area. And part of the reason for that, we're actually surrounded, like where I'm sitting right now, we've got 3 different military bases in this district, like major military bases. So we have a lot of retired military. So that's, not former, but current elderly military tend to be over conservative. The younger military folks who came through in the whole era of Democrats are siding with the terrorists. So they're rather conservative in this area. We also have a lot of income disparity in this area. We have an overabundance of lawyers and doctors. We have the premier medical facility down here where all the professional athletes come to get worked on anytime they have an injury. You can bet they're probably coming down here to Gulf Breeze, to the Andrews Institute. So there's a lot of money, and that money is very conservative. So they don't care when you have somebody out there doing the crazy things, going on tour with Marjorie Taylor Greene, or perhaps in this, possibly even sex trafficking scandal, whatever comes of that. They don't care about that as long as it's okay. But can we get our tax breaks? Can we get what we need to keep being wealthier than everybody else in this area? So I think that's a lot of what it is. Now, I'm not saying this whole area is wealthy, but there's a lot of them, a lot of money in this area. And on the other side, you do have a bit of a shift in the city of Pensacola, which is one of the largest here in this district. We're starting to get demographic changes. It's starting to get a little younger. It's starting to be less white. And in this past election, I believe 45% in that area actually voted Democrat, which was huge, because that area has not gone blue since they voted for JFK. So there's a shift there, but it's still not enough to overcome the military, the money, and of course, let's be honest, the rednecks, because we got a lot of those. This is basically South Alabama over here.
Floribama?
Alabama. Yeah,
Are you in Floribama?
I'm not far from that. Just a few minutes, really, at this point.
Yeah, I remember as a kid growing up, and I was born in North Miami. And for me, whenever I would go anywhere driving out of the state, everything between Palm Beach and another state was just like the abyss. Like I never went there. I have no idea about that. And I know that it's extremely rural. And I know that Florida really is like 5 states.
It really is. It really is. And I wish more people understood that when they say like, oh, is Florida going to be blue or red? Like, no, Florida's like 5 different things. Like, we should be our own country. We really should, because it's so different from where I am, from where you are, from the college towns in, you know, Central Florida. It's not even the same. It's not even comparable, these different areas. You know, it's a lot, I guess, like California or Texas. It's just so big that it can't be, you can't ever really read it, right? You know, there's no good handle on how to predict what's going to happen with Florida here, because it's just so different from top to bottom.
Yeah, we're speaking with Farron Cousins of Ring of Fire. And again, you know, Florida's, like you said, it's 5 states. It's the Panhandle, it's the Jacksonville metro area, it's Central Florida, which includes the I-4 corridor, and then you have Southwest and Southeast. And, you know, certainly with what's coming next year, I got to tell you, you know, I think Nikki Fried she's good. You know, she's not bad and she's not great. You know, she's something in between, but that's certainly better than what we've been dealing with in many respects. What are your thoughts on her? You know, because again,
Charlie Crist.
Yeah, and
really, I mean, that's what we're looking at here.
And I really do think that it's going to be very tough to knock off DeSantis. And with that said, you know, Nikki is the only statewide elected official that the Democrats have, and sort of that balance of sorts, if you will. Somebody who I will not name, but he's high up in the party in the state, and is just beside himself that Nikki is giving up that seat to chase the incumbent in what looks like, well, see what happens in the long run, because I do think what Greg Abbott did in Texas may be a legitimate lifeline for the Democrats in the midterms, but it was looking like a real red wave, and it may still be. Why not wait until 26, get easily reelected to that seat, build up more name recognition, and then have much more of an opportunity to win an open race in 26? What are your thoughts on that? The
gubernatorial race.
The decision that Nikki is ultimately doing, but I think that also speaks to the fact that the Democratic bench in the state of Florida is pretty weak. You know,
it is very weak, and honestly, I feel like that is probably why Nikki Fried has decided to step up at this point. I mean, look, you know, Charlie Crist, former governor, former Republican, former independent,
former everything.
Yeah, and so we don't know what he is. And I actually, you know, I have the pleasure of working with individuals who've known Charlie Crist back from their law school days, you know. And unfortunately, that's all Crist has really always been, according to these folks. And I don't want to get them in trouble, so I'm not going to say the names, but always just this kind of chameleon of like, oh, okay, I need to be this, so these people like, oh, okay, I'll go over here and be this, so these people like me. And it's not anything that anybody should be like, oh, hell yeah, that's super great. This is exactly what we need in Florida. No, and so I feel like Nikki Fried, in terms of who would be a better governor, Nikki Fried, obviously out of the 3, Crist, DeSantis, or Fried, Nikki Fried is going to, you know, would be the best possible choice out of those 3. Is this the right time for her? I don't know. You know, polls right now, obviously, DeSantis loses to both of them, but that's going to change. You know, this time next year, none of this matters, especially. And look, I hope the pandemic goes away as soon as possible. I would love for it to end tomorrow. But the second it does, and you guys know this as well, Florida's moving on. Like, we don't care. We're not going to care about anything that happened. We're just going to move on and pretend, okay, well, he didn't do a good job, but maybe we'll try again. Maybe if the pandemic hadn't been there. And that's what the voters are going to think. You know, Rick Scott, his second term of as governor, when he was running, he had pissed off all the teachers. You know, you remember that kind of a Wisconsin style. And so the teachers hated him. But then when it came time for re-election, most of the teachers ended up voting for him anyway. Because but that was, you know, 2-3 years ago that we were so mad at him. I mean, we even in our ultra conservative area had teachers out there protesting. And then most of them turned around and voted for him anyway. So that's what, you know, when I say these people are going to forgive and forget and move on and re-vote for these people, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because we've seen it too many times. So the polls right now, it's fun to talk about them, but they mean nothing in the long run.
That's what I say. I say that all the time to people. I'm like, but he's just down in the polls. I'm like, it doesn't matter. And he knows that too.
Yeah.
He knows that doesn't matter. And I watch him and I think that he's like, it's like watching a political masterclass, watching him, and he's already running for president in 24.
Farron, unless something significant happens, I think he's the next president. And the way I look at it is this, and I really think it's important for you to share your perspective. You live in one of the areas of the state where he is immensely popular. Based on what you've learned from people that you've communicated with, what is the great appeal, if you will, of Governor DeSantis? There's nothing redeemable whatsoever about Senator Scott.
To me, that's the thing.
About Rick Scott.
We have very low bar here. Very low bar.
And I'm almost thinking that may be part of it. There is this sort of overinflation about how good DeSantis really is, just because Rick Scott, to me, is, if you want to talk about, if you told me that Rick Scott was the worst elected representative in the United States right now, I wouldn't be able to give you a good enough argument to say otherwise.
Voldemort. He's Voldemort. So to me, everything is better than Rick Scott. So we have such a low bar here. For me, I don't hate DeSantis as much as people would probably prefer. I do. I just don't. I don't like him. I don't think he's good. But again, we're Florida.
Yeah. That's true. And so what has been your observation based on, what the DeSantis phenomenon, if you will?
Well, right now, a lot of it is just, he's fighting back, obviously, against this oppression of masks and vaccine mandates. There really is this strong sentiment in this area of, oh, hell yeah, they can't take away our freedoms. We're the weirdos that you see in the viral videos, ranting and raving about having to wear masks. And so they like that. They like the culture war issues. They like the transgender athlete ban, even though that's not even a thing that is a problem anywhere.
Sort of like critical race theory, not a thing.
Exactly. And they're terrified of critical race theory, so they like that. But most importantly, DeSantis hasn't done anything to piss them off.
Yeah.
Right. He hasn't challenged anything. He hasn't actually changed anything in their lives. And that's all that matters to them. They're not any worse. They're not any better, except, of course, for all the people that have died. They're worse off, obviously. But other than that, if it doesn't affect them personally, they don't care. Then they say, okay, why change ships midstream when I'm okay where I'm at? And that, honestly, that's a lot of what made Trump, I don't want to say popular, but I guess popular with, middle America. Yeah. Their lives, a lot of them, some of them did get worse, obviously, with the trade war and the farmer bankruptcies going through the roof. But a lot of people would look at that, and had it not been for COVID, he'd be president right now.
Absolutely.
I have no doubt.
100%.
Yeah, because so many people looked at their lives and say, okay, well, he says crazy things. He does stupid things. He's a bit of a buffoon, but my life's no different. So what do I really care? And we have to get that through to people. And I wish we could get it through to the Democrats in Congress. Like, if you don't make these people's lives better, they're going to go the other way. They're going to go to that other party in the midterm. So, they've set this deadline on themselves of September 27th, to get these bills passed and then early October and all that. But if they can't do this, if they allow the corporatists to take them down, those people who under Trump were saying, my life's not so bad, when they get promised these big things and then don't get them, that makes them mad. And they're going to take that out on the Democratic Party, who fails to deliver. So there's a lot at stake here, not just here in Florida, obviously, but all over the place. But I do think Florida, of course, I'm biased because I'm here. This really is ground zero for what people need to expect. Like, DeSantis is making horrible decisions across the board, but he's still not even that unpopular because people don't care if it doesn't affect them directly. And that's what makes it so scary too.
Yeah.
We're headed for another Texas style abortion ban here in Florida. They're kicking that idea around. The transgender athlete ban, the protest bills.
This is all distraction. So they don't have to actually do anything. But the truth is, the Democrats like that. They don't want to actually have to do anything because most of them are just as corporate anyway. So they don't really care. But one of the things I think about Florida, and especially regarding popularity of somebody like DeSantis, is that, he's not affecting them economically really one way or the other. but there's a lot of like very strong civil liberties defenders in this state. And that is something, and this is something where I actually am very like, this is where I'm very libertarian. Like I am very strong civil liberties. So when people like that he is standing up for those things, I don't always agree with the policy, but I kind of like that too. And I definitely like him like standing up to big corporations or big tech and doing that. Like that's appealing. And it comes off in a very good way politically, I think. And it certainly reaches the people. I mean, you know, not just your gun people, but all of your sort of rural live and leave me alone kind of people.
And the only misstep that DeSantis has really made has been with the mask mandate, because this is a county strong state, as you know, and he's trying to fight this fight. And again, we know why he's doing it. I don't even think he gives a damn. I think he just knows where the red meat is, and he wants to feed the wolves, if you will, because they're hungry. But what they've attempted to do here in Broward, not a smart move. And just like in a number of these other counties, when they say that it is a county strong state, and if the parents want their kids being masked at school, that's it. That is the end of the line. And if he keeps pushing it, that's going to cost him politically. Now, I think he's got one of the most intelligent political teams around that I've ever seen. So I don't know how much further he's going to take this fight, but that's the type of fight where he got himself involved in something that was completely out of sight, out of mind. It never made sense from the beginning. It almost seemed like he has like a vendetta against the teachers union. Maybe he does, because they make a lot of noise up in Tallahassee, and he probably doesn't like it. But you know what? That's the way politics is supposed to be. You know, at least the teachers union is fighting. I mean, that's one thing you could say. The Florida teachers union does, get in the mud. They are willing, to go to bat for the kids. And that's obviously very important to see. And so I do think that his sort of evolution as a politician just has more to do with, is he going to make a big mistake?
Right. It's his to lose.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because especially if you look around at some of the other possible Republican candidates at this point, none of them have the kind of, especially with DeSantis, the short record of, other than bad policies. Let's pretend the bad policies are another thing. There's no actual scandals, right? It's not like this guy has some skeletons in his closet. He's relatively young, so there's not a big, long history to go back and dig stuff up for, as opposed to, Ted Cruz, who obviously also wants to be president. You put those
never going to happen. If there's one thing I could say, that is never going to happen.
At
least I don't put any guarantees.
But you compare a Ted Cruz to a DeSantis. DeSantis is going to win that battle. Josh Hawley, maybe you got something there. Maybe those two could duke it out. Maybe they, form a nightmare ticket, really. But the DeSantis is better situated than some of these other people who have been around for so long and really have nothing to show for it except for a couple of scandals and, some fights on social media. DeSantis has avoided that so far. He just has bad policies. And as we all know, the public will overlook bad policies all day long.
As long as they like you.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a popularity contest.
Yes, and I can see him being appealing. And I also do like the fact that he has served in the military. That is something, and I am not I am pretty anti all of that, but it is appealing. It's appealing that somebody who's going to be sending people to war has served in the military. And isn't a coward.
Again, I can't speak, we obviously can't speak to Rick Scott and his nightmare, but the one thing I will say about DeSantis is at least he could have easily really got involved with the whole Guaido situation, and especially what's going on in Cuba. He's really stayed away from the whole Venezuela, Cuba thing. He'll throw like the red meat out there and saying that the Cuban people should be free, but he could have really made that a political football, unlike our representative, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who makes it a political football. And this is a Democrat doing this nonetheless. It does speak to the fact that, and I still think this is the most underrated part of his reelection bid and his presidential run. He served our country. And that in states like Georgia, states like Arizona, states like Pennsylvania, that matters a lot to the average voter. It really does. And it's not getting talked about enough. And the other thing that I think was a colossal failure on Biden's part is that he addressed him. You do not address a guy who's not even running yet. And the idea that you're going to give him this kind of name recognition right now, big mistake. Should not have done that. And, you know, like I said, he's a very shrewd, he is the steady hand that Trump was not. He'll basically do exactly what Trump did, exact same thing. But this guy is not a Looney Tune the way that Trump was. And I think he is the smart Trump, I guess is what you would say.
He's less offensive.
Yeah, because that's where we're heading. And I think this conversation is important to have, because I think it's very important. A lot of people don't see these things coming before they actually get there. And I think that this is something that you see. This is something that we see. We see DeSantis coming a long way before a lot of other people do. And that I think is important in terms of how you prepare, because you need to start preparing in advance if you're going to have any shot at stopping it, if that makes sense.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, and there's no reason why, you know, if the Democrats were smarter about messaging, they'd be running nationwide ads right now, attacking Florida, attacking Greg Abbott as well over in Texas for their handling of the pandemic, reminding the public, burning it into their brains how bad these people are when they actually have a chance to govern. But, you know, nobody wants to do that. You've got all this money. You have the apparatus. You could be running these ads. Go ahead and go after these people now. You don't have to wait for a Republican primary or a general election. Let the public know now how bad these things are so that you're not playing catch up 2 years from now. But I will say this too about DeSantis. You know, you're absolutely right about him being the, you know, I guess more even toned Trump, because they believe the same things. They would, to me, be just as terrible. The other thing about DeSantis, though, is he doesn't necessarily have the kind of experience up on a debate stage, you know, so that would be interesting to see is how he would handle himself, because we have seen, we saw people fall apart in 2015, the Republican debates, like the way,
that was great.
Like the way Chris Christie just ruined Marco Rubio's career.
Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely. So, you know, I would love to see something like that. I want to know how these individuals do handle themselves when they're up against the members of their own party, calling them out. So that would be fun to see, because I've never seen DeSantis in that setting, having to really, you know, defend everything he's done, especially now that he actually has a good legislative record, not a good record, but a record really that people see. So that would be something that would be interesting to me. But I do think right now he is the most dangerous person ahead of 2024, because he could win this thing. He could absolutely be the dark horse that takes it all and could easily take on Biden. I think Biden's in a lot of trouble already. We're not even a year into this, but I think people are already like, okay, we got rid of the bad guy, but you're also kind of just blah. So
it was never
it's
about
not good for him.
It's never about getting rid of Trump. It was about stopping Bernie. That's what it was about. And
in terms of putting Biden in there, but you know, I'm not sure. Like, I don't think he would run again. He was pretty clear that this would be a one-term thing, and I think that they're going to try to shove Kamala at people, but we know that's not going to work. Yeah. It's just not going to work. They could try. They could try it every which way they want to package her. It's not going to work. And it's who else would they have? And I honestly don't think that Biden would be up to do another term. I don't know how they get his meds just right for just the right amount of time for him to even do anything.
I think they had every intention of trying to get Buttigieg ready for 28. That's clearly the path that they were trying to push. And it really just, like you said, it's a lot of work. It's sleepless nights, and
he can't do it. So they have nobody. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The Democrats have nobody.
They really went.
Who would they put up in 24?
They really went all in on stopping Bernie. And so in the process, the party is still divided, even though Biden is elected. But you're talking about a situation that hasn't fully fixed itself yet. And I think this is a great transition to where we think some of the stronger candidates at the senatorial level are going to be. We had Alan Ellison on the podcast. Think he's really good. We just had Josh Wheel. Even Alan Grayson is running. But if the Democratic establishment is going to do what they always do and just clear the field for Val Demings, you're not going to get enough enthusiasm and momentum to unseat Marco Rubio.
Nope.
So we are really at a situation now where you really do have to be able to build those coalitions. And I think if a number of solid candidates, and ironically enough, all of the candidates that we just mentioned, they're all running in different parts of the state. So if they really build a very strong coalition and the Democratic establishment doesn't put their thumb on the scale,
that's not going to happen.
Well, we're wishful thinking here. But if that were to happen, there could be an opportunity here in the Senate race, especially because even though Rubio's not hated, he's just, there's nothing exciting about him. We can at least see why people are excited about DeSantis, but who's Marco Rubio? He is the ultimate yes man if there ever was one. If Trump said jump, he would just say how high.
Well,
and that's basically how it's always been.
But Val Demings is not going to. I just don't.
And if she were to rightfully win, that's fine. But to just basically say all the money, everything, resources, that the rest of you guys, you go and do your own thing. We're getting behind Val. How is that going to help the party? Not just in the state level, but overall. How do you see it unfolding on the senatorial side?
No, I agree with you. And it's really sad because Marco Rubio truly is one of the weakest individuals in that Senate. And I'm not just talking about, in terms of personality or whatever. His standing here in the state of Florida is not super, super strong. He does give lip service to the religious communities and does try to bring in as many of the Cuban voters as possible. So he is good with that, but he's very weak on policy. He is, the dumbest person in the world when he opens his mouth. So it wouldn't take a even moderately strong Democrat to come in and deliver a knockout blow against him. And that's what does get frustrating when you have this many candidates and you do have the apparatus of the party saying, we're probably going to rally around this one. Let it play out. Let the people build general enthusiasm for a particular candidate and then watch what happens in the race. Because if there is enthusiasm, it should be very easy to defeat Marco Rubio and get him out of the Senate for good. But if the thumb is on the scale in any way, you kill that. You kill all of that emotion, all of the energy, and it becomes ho-hum, it's a midterm. I don't need to show up and vote anyway. Everybody's stupid. And that's what happens. So if the process isn't natural, or if it's even perceived to not be natural, Marco Rubio is going back up there for another 6 years. And that's sad because he is so very, very beatable.
I just think people are so the Democrats are not wanting to change anything. So what happens is they don't mind it the way it is. It works for them. They're perfectly content with the status quo. And so they have no incentive to want to rally up anybody to change anything. And that's what we see happening. And what's sad is that so many people are just regular Democratic voters, they don't see that. And they just vote for whatever's on the menu, except for then when you don't have enthusiasm, the only people that come out and vote are your super voters. And that won't be enough. And that's really what the ultimate problem is. Like you're saying, if there's not any sort of excitement or motivation, they're just not going to come out and vote. They're not. You're just going to get your vote blues no matter whose, but you're not going to get enough people.
And what's even more amazing is we have the precedent that was just said a few years ago. Andrew Gillum was not the choice of the establishment. It was clearly Gwen Graham. And it looked like initially that she was going to win, but Andrew ran one of the best primary races I've ever seen. He did an amazing job. I thought the one of the best parts of his campaign was he got that campaign bus. It was a fantastic investment. He was driving up and down the state, meeting with as many people on the stump. It's so Florida that what happened to him ultimately did happen to him. But you could learn so much from what he did and piggyback off of that and use that as sort of that barometer to use. And you were mentioning before, the one thing you could say about DeSantis, he gets upset. If you if you box him in, he will. That's one big difference between him and Trump is that Trump was never that guy who ever really, showed that he gave a damn. He had just like an aloof attitude. But if you came after DeSantis, he gets upset and he'll get angry and he'll get flustered. And Gillum was good at doing that on the CNN debate at times. And so I look at the circumstance we're sitting at right now on the senatorial side and just thinking, you have an opportunity to allow the grassroots circumstance to play out. If ultimately Val is the nominee, let it play out on an even playing field. She's obviously going to raise more money for sure. But if you basically do everything in your power to make sure that the 4 or 5 other candidates that are running right now, some who have run for federal office before, some who have actually been in elected federal office before, and you're just going to completely, push them aside, don't come complaining when you don't win a seat that is
winnable.
It should be winnable.
Well, and when you expand that too, though, beyond the state of Florida here, kind of back to your point of who's going to be the Democratic nominee in 2024, where is the excitement? Who is the excitement around? I mean, I think at this point, to say Bernie's not going to run again. No. I'm pretty sure we're all in agreement on that. But who's next? That's the thing the Democratic Party has done such a poor job of, is who's the next man up? Who's the next woman up? Whatever. But they don't have one. We've got a couple figures out there, but none of them are ready for that. No. And so what do? We've got a couple old white guys that are really good on things. We've got Bernie, we've got Markey, but they're probably past their prime on running for president again. So who would it be? I mean, honestly, I don't have an answer.
They're going to do. We think they're going to try to go.
I think you can make the argument right now that if they're, because it's clear that Kamala can't do it, and they're not going to, and Buttigieg. Certainly.
You say it's clear, but it was clear that she couldn't win a single primary. It was clear that nobody liked her, and yet there she is.
No, that she ultimately would be the nominee if they want to go that route, and they'll try that. But I actually do think you could make the argument that, and especially because of what just happened in California with the recall, that just adds a whole other layer of name recognition. You could make the argument that Newsom might actually take his shot, because he's going to take it at some point. It's just a question of when it comes. It's to me, you could make the argument that he may actually take a shot in 24. It really just depends on how it unfolds. We're getting way ahead of ourselves right now. Yeah. But I do think ultimately, if Biden decides to step away, he'll make that announcement right after the midterms next year. And then it'll be a question of, are you going to have a legitimate primary, or are they just going to try to anoint Kamala? I think that's really what it comes down to. And as far as who we would want to see on the progressive side, I mean, look, Nina Turner to me is still the person who, even if it's not right now, I still think she is the brightest star that could shine. I know a lot of people may say AOC, but to me, there's something about Nina. I hate saying that. There's something about
There
Nina.
Is something about Nina. She's the shit. That's what I tell her. You're the shit.
Yeah.
But I think that when you're looking at our party, they really don't have any our party. I'm registered as that because I have no option. When you look at it, it's like there is nothing there because they don't really want anything to be there. And I think that the options are just very slim pickings, because the options that were given within that party are not exciting. And if you even look like, okay, yeah, Bernie was exciting, but he's an independent. So there really isn't anybody that's on the Democratic side that's exciting. But I will say, on a positive note, we've ruled out Cuomo. So
yeah.
So because that was sort of lingering there for me for a little bit in a very uncomfortable way.
That's not an easy decision to make, but obviously I would totally lean Newsom over Cuomo.
Oh, I would go Newsom over Cuomo.
1,000%.
Good God, I don't think Newsom's a predator.
Farron, I think that it's very important for us to address Wasserman Schultz from this perspective. The state party has a lot of problems, significant problems, including the fact that the party chair is a former Republican from Miami. And the only reason why he is in that position is because of Debbie and her relationship with Mike Bloomberg, who put up the money to basically get him in there.
Well, he bought the party and put his little person in charge, who's a Republican. You can't even make this shit up. And
so when I say that Debbie is really the head of the Florida Democratic Party, she still is, still making all the decisions up and down the line. I don't think we're ever going to right the ship of the Florida Democratic Party until she is no longer an elected representative. Your thoughts on that? Again, I'm not trying to nudge her to run again for the seat right now, but I still think that Debbie really is the key to unlocking a different type of path forward for the Democratic Party in Florida. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, look, you cannot move forward with the relics of the past. And that is exactly what Debbie Wasserman Schultz is. And to be honest, a lot of the Democratic Party is that.
Yeah.
It's the old way of thinking. It's the people entrenched in the money. And that's another problem too, is as long as we still have that money, you know, at the local level, the state level, the federal level, that money is going to talk more than our votes are going to count. And that is always the biggest problem in elections today. And that's what holds us back. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is beholden to the corporate money. Therefore, the Democratic Party of the state of Florida is beholden to the corporate money. So all the candidates we run, regardless of where they are in Florida, have to be part of that corporate money machine in order to get the approval of the state party. And that's what's so terrifying about it. Again, not just here. This is all over the place. But yes, it is a little more entrenched down here with Wasserman Schultz. And you can't move forward with people like that. They don't want things to change. They don't want things to get better because then they got nothing else. So they keep things going the way they are. They take their corporate money. They go out there. They say the good talking points of, oh, it's horrible that we're whipping people with whips on horseback at the border. Oh, if only we could do something. But anyway, we can't. Oh, it's terrible that these tech companies have these monopolies and they're squeezing out these smaller tech companies and snatching up their ideas. And, oh well, we can't do anything about it. Oh, the planet's burning down, but it's going to cost money to do something about it. That's the old way of thinking. And unfortunately, it's still the current way of thinking for far too many people, including Wasserman Schultz. And we're stuck. We're stuck here spinning our wheels, trying to figure out how to get the hell out of this when what we've got to do is get out there and get these people out of office, replace them with somebody better, you know, get the primary challenges. I know, you know, Jen and I talked when she was running for office. She came on Ring of Fire and we talked about her campaign. And it's wonderful. We need more people like that. That's what people have to do. You have to get out there. You have to put yourself out there and you have to make that change or else nothing will change. But it's up to the people to do that. And that's where things get iffy. It's hard to rely on people to do these kinds of things, but that's all we got. It's up to us and we got to do it.
Right. Which is where we get into the whole, when we start talking about the possibility of third parties and how realistic that is, and this huge divide and people not getting behind non-corporate candidates because if they're running as a Democrat, then, oh, they must be a sellout. And this is getting like, we're in our own way in the worst possible way in a lot of these cases. It's very frustrating. I feel like it used to be, okay, as a Democrat, we would go up against a Republican. Well, now it's not even that. Now you have to, then it was you have to go up against the establishment Dems and then go up against Republican. Now we're fighting amongst other people that are technically progressive, and then you still get stumped by the corporate Dems, and then you have to go against the Republicans. Like all we've done is added layers of opposition. That's what it feels like on my end. It's very frustrating. Are you noticing that, by the way?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's the way things are now, but it is adding layers, but I think at the same time, it's also helping to expose those layers. You know, those are things that, 5-6 years ago, people weren't paying attention to. People didn't understand what the establishment meant. People didn't understand the difference between a liberal and a progressive. People are starting to understand this. People are starting to wake up to this, and people are starting to see that it's not just a left versus right thing. There's different layers on the left. There's different layers on the right. And as people start to wake up to that, it may wake people up to the idea of third parties, which would be great. I think we need more parties.
Oh, yeah.
We need open primaries here in the state of Florida. That's another thing that holds us back
Ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting.
Yeah, that's another great thing. And so we're held back in a lot of ways by all of these institutions put in place, obviously, over the years by the two-party system. So in order to break it all down, something has to happen. And it's kind of hard to even describe because we don't know what that thing is yet. But something has to happen. Some candidates have to break through. And once that happens, more can break through. We are seeing that a little bit in Congress. We have seen some of the more, establishment types lose their primaries to progressive challengers, but it's not enough. It's not good enough yet. We have to get more, and not just at the federal level, mostly at the state level, because that's where all of these really oppressive rules that nobody pays attention to get put in place. Everybody wants to talk about the voter suppression. Okay, well, how is a closed primary not voter suppression, right? How is not having ranked choice voting helping anyone make a choice on who to vote for here? If we have more options, if we have more say, if we make things actually more representative, either by third parties or ranked choice or whatever it is, we may actually be able to fix some things around here, but we have so much to change before we can even get to that point.
So where would you start? So if you had like the magic wand and you could say fix one major thing in Florida, because I know we're kind of like on our focus on Florida today, like what do you think right now is the key issue that is like really needs to be dealt with here?
Well, aside from getting the money out, obviously, it would have to be the closed primaries. And at one point many years ago, I actually defended closed primaries. And I've evolved a ton on that issue because it is a very stupid idea. But I understand why the parties did it, right? They don't want anybody else coming in. It's our party. It's our choice. We're going to do what we want. But no, it's not about what you want as the party. It's about what the people want. You let them have an equal voice in there, and then you have to go with that. So immediately I would do away with the closed primaries if I got, my one wish to move forward in Florida elections right now. That would be the first thing I would do.
Yeah, I've always questioned it. To me, it just doesn't even seem really constitutional. And what's interesting is the history of it really goes back to the racism issue in this country, because the parties were able to, even if Blacks are given the right to vote, well, the parties don't have to let Black people in their party. And so you can exclude voters by saying only people in the party get to vote, but you're not technically taking away their right to vote. You're just saying it's only people in the party get to vote. And I would bet you that if you were to look at all the states that still have closed primaries, that they're mostly states that had issues like that. Because that's the way you were able to keep, that was like one of the earlier forms of voter suppression. Once voting was allowed for other people's, where you could keep them out of your party. That's how you do it.
Yeah. And so to me, I do think that is, obviously one of the first big things that needs to happen here. But we have to open it up for third parties. You mentioned the debate with Desantis and Gillum. It was Desantis and Gillum, right?
No. When did they debate? When was
on
that?
CNN right before the election.
Oh, okay.
Right. Was there anybody else on that debate stage?
No, just them.
Of course not.
No, exactly. And those were not the only two choices when we went and filled out our ballots that year. And so I think if your name is on that ballot, you're on the stage. That's it. No questions about it. Doesn't matter what you're polling at. If you're on the ballot, you're on the stage. And that needs to be true for presidential debates. It needs to be true for every single election. If there's a person on the ballot, you have to include them in these conversations. Otherwise, it's intentional suppression. So, I can't help but think of how different. I mean, look at Ross Perot, right?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have gotten nearly the amount of votes he did had he not made it onto that stage. But every time they try to make it a little harder, like, okay, well, now you got to poll at this certain percent and you got to have this many signatures and you got to be able to hold your breath for 3 minutes underwater. And if you can't do any of that, then you can't be on the, it's insane. The two parties default onto there, but we can't even hear maybe what somebody else has to say, but their name's going to be on that ballot. I could vote for them for president, but I can't hear them on national TV.
Exactly.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when you qualify to be on a ballot, which by the way is not an easy thing to do. So, whatever your process is to do that, that's the ticket to get on the stage. If you qualify to get into the election, you qualify to be in that. Like, I think that I agree absolutely.
And I think the name recognition factor absolutely helps. And of course, we didn't push for it, but there was no way Wasserman Schultz was going to get on a debate stage with Jen. That was never going to happen. And it's because you don't have anything to offer. And so a lot of times
that would be so fun.
Yeah, well, you would have handled yourself better than the other candidate did, but that's a whole other story. I do think that if
I would really honestly, there would be more of me laughing at her than anything.
But that wouldn't help you with voters.
I couldn't help myself. Something ludicrous would come out of her mouth, and I would just like, she takes herself so seriously. Like, I've heard her of saying things to people that if she said that to me, I would just laugh at her. I would.
They did technically have a debate. It was an interview for the endorsement for the Sun Sentinel.
That wasn't a debate.
It wasn't a debate, but you could call it what you want to call it. The biggest problem that existed was right at the beginning. The people who were interviewing were saying their pleasantries to the congresswoman like they're about to go out and have tea and crumpets.
They're all friends. They're all friends.
This is not what politics is supposed to be. You guys are not supposed to be friends. You guys are supposed to have not an adversarial relationship, but it's supposed to be strictly professional. And when you conduct yourself in this way, and you wonder why people don't like politics, and that's a great example of the average person who would look at that and say, I don't want anything to do with this crap. Why would I want anything to do with that?
I'd like to point out that the Sun Sentinel is a hack publication.
It is.
And I actually had said, when they invited me to come on and do that, I responded, I want to talk to Rosemary first. She was the head of the editorial or the opinion section. And I asked her flat out, I'm like, look, I know you guys are just going to push it for Debbie, and I really don't want to waste my time because it's this huge questionnaire that you have to fill out. It took us a long time to put it together. And I said, and to be honest, I really don't want to do it if this is going to be a waste of time. Of course, she reassured me it wasn't, and yet it was. And so now it's like lesson learned. I will never, ever talk to them again. I won't give them the time of day. And it was ridiculous. It was like sitting at a brunch with them and Debbie, and every once in a while they would ask me a question.
Ironically, the one real political organization that's good, and Jen happens to be the co-chair, is the League of Women Voters, and they're the ones who used to host the debates.
That's who they need to bring back.
The ones that should be doing it today.
Yeah,
and I think that speaks more to, because again, the Sun Sentinel is owned by a corporate conglomerate, and as soon as that happens, their interests are not in line with working class or just regular voter interests.
They don't want the League to do it anymore because the League is nonpartisan, and the League also will only participate if it's done fairly and rightly. Like, they're not going to go, they won't do it otherwise. And that's the problem.
I think as we wind down the conversation, I think it's really important that we just continue to build, we don't really have a Florida coalition per se. And when you think about independent media, we're basically the only ones in South Florida. You obviously up in the Panhandle, but there really isn't a lot in Florida, and we really need to build this network. We really need to make it stronger, because that's the only way we're going to beat this thing. It's not, like you said, Farron, there's been chinks in the armor. There's a lot of people. It's like you're already thinking about the 2024 election and already recognizing where the average voter is at now, where they're like, I can't take this BS anymore. I don't want to be lied to. I don't want to be sold a bill of goods. Stop telling me that things are going to get better. You get in there, you do nothing, and it's all for show, and it's all about enriching yourselves. Joe Manchin is probably one of the best examples of that and everything that he's been up to. But that's just something that a lot of them do. He's just very forward about it. And I think that the appeal of, regardless of what stripe you are, red or blue or independent, whatever, the idea of being represented by people who are not part of the corporate special interest machine is something that I think appeals across the board. That's why, as I like to say, as we like to say as a show constantly, especially living in the Panhandle, progressives and libertarians have a lot more in common than they don't. And when you get to the heart of a lot of issues, whether it's civil liberties, being anti-war, recognizing that the healthcare system, when you have for-profit middlemen that do not need to exist between you and your doctor, there's a lot of commonalities that are there. Their belief in terms of how the economy should be run is obviously a lot different than the way progressives see it should be run, but that's not everything. And at the end of the day, you have to find common ground where you can. And I really think that that's the essence of where we go from here, is how do we continue to build on this? We do have a lot of nihilism on the left right now. And if that's the direction they choose to go in, so be it. But I do think there's a lot more people who are more inclined to lean on the idea of we need an inside-outside strategy where we build a grassroots movement outside, but we also elect non-corporate representatives on the inside. And when you're working in concert that way, I really think that that's how we're going to get to where we need to go, and ultimately trump, no pun intended, what the corporate special interests of the party establishment are ultimately doing.
I agree with you. And I think part of the thing too is in that coalition building or alliance building, or whatever you want to call it, we have to stop reaching out to people that we know are never going to be with us.
The too far gones.
And I think that's the problem. I think it's a problem that the Democratic Party has. They keep trying to reach out to the Republicans, to these moderate, middle of the road, whatever they want to call them, Republicans, forgetting that they're going to stab you in the back the first chance they get. They hate you just because you're not part of their club. And at the same time, they're, I don't want to use that phrase, but I guess crapping on the more progressive members of the party while trying to reach out to these Republicans. Build coalitions with the people who you actually have common interests with. Don't try to tailor your interests to fit in with somebody else just so they'll like you. And so I think that's a big part of it too. There's definitely room to build these alliances, but I think the heart of the Democratic Party has to wake up and realize they're reaching out to the wrong people.
Yeah. And this is where I get back to, and I don't think it's unintentional. I think that the corporate class has hedged their bets and they've purchased both parties, that everyone who was for sale on both sides, they bought them all up. And so they're getting their way either way. And now you are seeing some people breaking through. You are getting some non-corporate people in, but we saw it really in 2018, and it's been increasing. And for that, I am cautiously optimistic. But ultimately, when I look at the party leadership of the Dems, they have no interest in actually doing anything. I think they loved having Trump in office. I think, first of all, they were raising probably the most money that they were able to raise. I mean, people like Nancy Pelosi live for that. They live to be the Mick resistance of nothingness and not have to actually do anything. And that's the problem. So when they're reaching out to Republicans, I see it more as they're just coalescing with their own kind. Because when I look at someone like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she's a pro-choice Republican. She can call herself whatever she wants to. But when you look at where she gets her money and what she votes on, I mean, she takes the most money out of the right-wing Cuba PAC, and the next 9 people are Republicans. So there's no difference. And I think that the people that are truly on the left, it's like, we just really have nowhere else to go and we're stuck with the Dems. And it's just like, we're just trying to build up enough of us to sort of overtake that.
And I think that in a lot of ways brings the conversation full circle, as we addressed earlier in the podcast, which is essentially Debbie still holds the key to the Florida Democratic Party.
It's unfortunate.
And so long as she is operating as basically, again, you can say that Manny Diaz is the head of the party in the state, but the truth of the matter is she's the one who makes the calls. She's the one who has Donald Sussman and every other major billionaire donor in the state at her beck and call. And there's nobody who is more in favor with Big Sugar or, Nextera Energy or any of the major, conglomerates of industry that are hammering this state left and right, the developers, all of the, as you know, and you and Mr. Papantonio know, there's a lot of these law firms that are either in this state or throughout the country that basically are just washing the money for them now. They're not putting the name necessarily on the major corporation. It's just going through the law firm and it's getting to them. But I think a lot of people are just becoming hip to what's going on. And eventually, when enough people get hip to what's going on and they look at it and say, yeah, I'm not having that anymore. Yeah. I think it's just a question of when we break through. Yeah. But we have to become a much more well-oiled machine. And that's why having these types of conversations.
People need to see the alliances.
Yes, we were never going to do a podcast with a fellow content creator so that we could go dunk on other content creators.
No. But I think it's important for people who watch. First of all, I think that the more people that cross over, it's like a spider web that you're just building stronger connections among the web web. And when your people see on like, it just makes it stronger. That's really why I like to do it. It isn't about talking about content creators and nonsense. It's about building a broader audience and sharing that audience. It only makes us stronger. And before we go though, I have to just tell you, will you tell Mike that I really dig him? And that I have for quite some time now. Would you just put the word out there?
From one lawyer to another.
I just dig him. I just do.
Absolutely. I will definitely do that. And hopefully, you know, he's actually gearing up. He's got 2 different major trials in the next like 2 months. Otherwise, I probably would have been able to get him to come on tonight.
I don't know. I'd probably be all blushy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I could handle that.
Next time.
Yeah, I do dig him. I like the work you guys do, and I think that you keep it very. I am somebody that like to base things on reason. Not fear, not panic, not irrationality. And it's like, I find you guys to be extremely reasonable with the right amount of anger. It's very righteous anger.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, it's a lot of Mike and Ed Schultz. We're very good friends for many, many years. And, you know, he would fill in for Ed. So we did a lot of stuff with him. Ed would come down here and visit us in Pensacola. We would travel with him. So a lot of it, you know, that's how Ed was. He'd get pissed off when he needed to get pissed off, and then he'd be like, all right, I'm good. Now let's talk about it. I loved him.
Did I ever tell you I called in and spoke to him on his show once?
Oh, you did?
I did. It was a long time ago. Reese was in like the preschool program, so it had to be like.
Well, I actually called in and
like in 2004. I called in and spoke with him, and I was so excited. I think I sounded like an idiot.
No, you didn't.
I'm pretty sure I sounded like an idiot.
Ironically, I actually called into Tom Hartman once, and that was one of the first like ventures into sort of.
All right, I'm way old. This was in the Air America days.
No.
Oh, Tom is awesome. We've spent a ton of time with him. He is. I've been with him, you know, out to dinners and everything, and just talking to him, actually not even talking to him, just getting him to start talking about literally anything. And it's amazing. You just sit there like, oh my, this is the coolest. Like he just knows everything about everything.
He does.
And he's the greatest. I saw you just had him on.
I love him. He's very calming.
He's the best.
He's very calming. He's very also just, he's one of the good guys. He's just a good guy. Like he's just the real deal. I like Tom.
I met Alex Lawson through him, and I remember when Tom was the first person, you know, because I don't really pay, you know, I don't pay much mind to RT, but you know, when Tom had his show on there, and I remember he had, I think it was Horace Cooper as a guest, and he's like, how could you support that stupid socialist from Vermont? What are you doing? And it's like, Tom just had the most reasonable response to the corporate, talking points about how Bernie's going to turn this into Venezuela or Russia and this and that. And he was the first guy that really, you know, because I had always known about Bernie, and when he said he was going to run, I was like, you know what? I finally found the guy that I know I can get behind for this. And when Tom explained it, it was like, not only am I going to get behind him, but I'm going to go work for him. I'm going to help him out, and that is it. That
he makes everything sound so good.
And that's the thing about what you do, Farron. That we're so appreciative of the work that you do, that Pap does, that Ed did, and obviously Tom does. There is a great group of you guys that are out there, especially with Ring of Fire, that are really doing the work. It may not get the fanfare of all of the sexy channels that are doing their, you know, like I said, one content creator talking about the other content creator. And that's
I can't with these people.
That may be good for clicks, but it ain't good for progress. And that's really what it comes down to. And so as final thought for the evening, please share whatever work you're on right now.
Yes.
Plug your channel, website, anything you want to mention so more people can find you who may not be familiar.
Put it up.
Yeah, absolutely. The big YouTube channel, obviously, Ring of Fire, is youtube.com/The Ring of Fire. I also have a second YouTube channel that I've been doing for almost a year now, youtube.com/Farron Balanced. That's FARRON.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And and so actually on all of my social media as well, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's at Farron Balanced. So
how do I not know that this exists? So that's you have a YouTube. Well, now I do. Now I subscribe. But so you have, what kind of stuff do you? It's like similar.
It's similar, except on mine, it's a little more laid back. It's a lot more fun. And on that one, I really just go after the stupidity. If something stupid has happened in politics like that, I just have a ton of fun with it there. And, Ring of Fire, obviously, we're far more polished to a degree, but, and tackling more of the issues. But I kind of wanted something too, where I was like, you know what? I want to be immature sometimes. And that
I'll
really
have to check that out. It might change
it.
my whole perception. The first time I was on Ring of Fire was actually with Sam Cedar.
Yeah, Sam still does the Ring of Fire podcast.
That's what I was on, yeah.
If I knew the website for the podcast, I think it's rofpodcast.com. I hope I'm not getting that wrong, but we kind of separated the podcast off into a separate business a couple years ago, so I've lost touch with that. Still, communicate with Sam regularly, but
it looks like that is correct. You were correct about that. I just looked up
good.
ROF podcast.
ROF podcast. So that's Sam.
Ironically, when Sam was on our show recently, and he did say, and this is one of the things, like you just remember certain things people say.
This stuck with him,
and this really stuck with me. He's like, I have been in Hollywood. I have been in all types of media. The online left does not understand just how small they are in the grand scheme of things in the political sphere. And that's why
it stood out to you.
When you see the other channels, we don't have to name them. You know who they are. You know who the top person is out of this particular nihilistic group. In their world, they are big. But in the real world, no one even knows who they are.
It's true.
So it really comes down to, if you want the clicks, if you're trying to build, the Patreon and all that jazz, we have a Patreon, but we don't take a salary. This is all for, we also have Gen Core, so we build on, local community efforts like, we do food distributions, beach cleanups, things like that. Those are the things that you need to do or really help the community. And it builds credibility and appreciation. That's something that, a lot of the other groups I really wish would do more of. And
I wish they do less criticizing what everyone else is doing and a little bit more doing of something.
Yeah, that's absolutely what needs to be done. And that, of course, is what we're trying to work on. That is what you are trying to work on. And so, guys, please check out Farron Balance. And then the last thing I was going to say, Jen had asked me, what did you want to title the podcast tonight? And of course, I'm the one who likes to play on words. And you say Farron Balance, and I said
he loves that.
Ring a fireside chat with Farron Cousins.
I didn't like because people won't get. No, I know it's cute, but it wasn't catchy. Thank you so much, Farron, for coming on and chatting with us. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. It was a ton of fun. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Cool. If something juicy comes up, will you come back?
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, brother.
All right. Bye. Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. Well, Farron's great. And, the whole idea of everything of like what they do. Like I said, it is unfortunate that there is just, again, we may not have a big viewership, but we're not changing our format just to suit where, like I said, the sexy stuff is. No. This is the important stuff. This is the stuff that is important. And we're not trying to tell people that you need to do this.
Are we all thinking about changing our format, though?
Yes. So for those of you who are here, we are considering, because I think it may just have something to do with the nights. One of the things, Jen is obviously very friendly with Katie Halper, and of course we go up against her right now. We are
no on Thursdays.
Yes. Is it? No, it's Monday. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
Okay, you're freaking me out, man. So
we are considering the prospect of going a Sunday Wednesday format. So if you guys have any thoughts on that, if you think that would be a better format.
I think we compete with too many people on Thursdays. But the other thing is, and I keep harping on this, we never started this to be a live stream. Like really, it's kind of fun to do it that way. Right. Yeah. Like this was always meant to be long form interviews. And speaking of interviews, I'm very excited about Thursday.
Yes.
So guys, Thursday, India Walton, the mayor-elect of Buffalo.
And this is going to be a little longer than a normal just conversation.
Candidate interview because she's dealing with a lot of nonsense up there. And it's just outrageous what they're doing to her. I'm very excited to talk to her.
I
She
might
is
even,
badass.
I may even ask her people if they may want to do a long form, like if she may want to come on for an hour.
Well,
Because,
I
think
can.
that's important.
And there's other
based on
things
what
we
she's
could,
talking
there's
about.
other things we can chat about.
Yes.
But what she's dealing with is like absurd. But guys, if you're not subscribed, please do so. If you're not a Patreon or patron, we would very much appreciate
We'll
it.
never get that right.
I'll never get it right because, and you know what? Shame on them for making a company called Patreon with patrons. It's
Yes,
a
of course.
patron, and you get the Lulu sticker with the little Lulu sticker. And
stop.
yeah, well, stop pushing it over there. It keeps doing it when you move it over there. And we love the support. We're just trying to get information out there. So we do have an interesting focus on Florida today.
We do.
And we've got some good stories. We have a few really important environmental stories, which being in Florida is really important.
Yes.
And for everybody literally going to be underwater here.
Also want to give a shout out to the amazing chat over the last half hour. Stephanie B, Adam.
What's going on
LP,
in there?
Who else we got? Bronx LT, always there. Great to see you. And Regal. You guys, all of you that have come on tonight and have really helped with the chat and the viewership over the last half hour, 40 minutes.
You guys
really
rock.
appreciate you guys very much. So thank you so much for getting more involved in the conversation. It really helps. Like I said, it's really all about the grassroots, and that's how we run our channel, and that's the way we're going to continue to run it. So as you can see here,
we have a good focus on Florida.
It's been a Florida kind of night, but it usually is on Mondays. So we really try to put it in perspective, and so. Our show. There
are no other people really doing that. I don't think there's any other. I mean, what other kind of shows in Florida? I mean,
nobody else in Florida.
I mean, they have Ring of Fire. They happen to be in Florida, but it isn't a Florida show.
No, that is true. But we really try to at least devote one day of the week to you. Jimmy, I'm sorry, but as long as you're doing what you're doing, you're just not part of our club.
You're not part of the solution. You're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you're not redeemable. You just have to have your come to Jesus moment. Irish Catholic guilt. That type of thing.
Okay, so I think we should start with the environmental stuff. Or do you want to? We could just do Florida COVID corner.
Well, I think. Considering that I was on an airplane today, and the one thing I will say is that and the reason why this story is important about the passengers getting kicked off of a Florida flight, because what else would possibly happen? When we talk about who are the most incendiary people out of anywhere when it comes to, oh, this is such tyranny and we're wearing masks and how could you do this to us? There was a candid shot of none other than Marjorie Taylor Greene on an airplane the other day wearing her mask and was sitting in the front in first class and had her feet up against the wall. So what else is new? Do as I say, not as I do, which is obviously very often what ends up happening. And so in this case, a couple of people on an airplane on American Airlines decided, oh, we're not wearing masks. This is oppression.
Yeah, the flight was apparently it was a Miami to Houston flight, and apparently the other passengers were chanting the song "Na na 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 hey 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 goodbye" when they were escorted off the plane. But apparently it had to go back to get them off the plane. Like they actually had to. It says here, a flight that had already been delayed for 9 hours. So this flight was already delayed for 9 hours, and these two people were holding it up even more. So people were not at all upset to see them go. And the flight was headed to Houston, but had to head back to Miami to get the Florida customers off the plane. So there's our Florida. And it also happens to be in my little, now I have Florida COVID corner.
For real. For real.
It's just no surprise there.
No, there is no surprise. And again, this is just, it's getting to the point now where it's like I said, we are not pushers of, vaccine mandates or any of that. We're vaccinated. But at the end of the day, we allow people to make their decisions in the confines of their own existence. But when you are amongst other people, like when you're on an airplane, wear the frickin' mask. This is so insane that this is the hill you wanted to, we're oppressed. We can't wear the mask on the plane. It's, again, you're looking for a reason to be, what's the word?
Contrary?
No, contrarian. You're looking for a reason to be contrarian.
Well, and I just think that we need to go back to the idea of people need to stop worrying so much about their rights and start thinking more about their responsibilities.
Yeah.
And that would be very helpful. And quite honestly, and as much as I hate wearing a mask, and I generally don't go places so much anymore because I just don't want to wear a mask, so I just don't go. But on an airplane is actually one of the places where I appreciate it. And in fact, have always found those to be flying Petri dishes. And this is this is the first time that I actually trust that airlines are even cleaning themselves. So the COVID stuff as far as air travel has been.
And if I could just give a shout out to JetBlue,
okay,
which
yes,
to me is the best run airline that we have here in the States. And as I'm getting off the plane, they immediately pick up all the tables, everything. They are literally going to town, obviously cleaning them. They are, putting on disinfectant everywhere. They are very serious about making sure that you are safe when you're on the airplane. And the same is true when you go into a supermarket, especially a place like Trader Joe's. It's a little smaller. Just have consideration for other people around you. What you choose to do in your private life, that's your private life. That's your business. But when you're amongst other people, just have a modicum of consideration for others. That's not a lot to ask. At least I don't think so.
We're dealing with some significant environmental issues.
We are dealing with some very significant
And one of the things that we talk about is this whole idea of everybody congregating in certain cities. Well, it turns out that roughly 16 million Floridians, which is 3/4 of our state, live in coastal counties. That's a problem.
You wanted to, and again, when we talk about Florida and we talk about a state that really is the libertarian's dream in many ways, we're still also a heavily centralized planned state. Everybody lives on top of each other, especially down here, especially in the Tri-County area, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade. Everybody lives on top of each other.
So the pattern in the Sunshine State reflects a nationwide trend. The coastal population in the U.S. more than doubled in the past 60 years, outpacing the country's overall growth rate during the same period by 17.5 percentage points. So being that we're so coastal, obviously, we're especially vulnerable to this.
Yes.
And I want to, we talk about it a lot with the water thing. I don't think people really understand. So along the Florida coast, the forecasts that sea levels will have risen by a foot between 2050 and 2060 compared with a 1995 to 2014 baseline. So in other words, it's so exponentially happening. By 2090, it will have risen 2 feet from the baseline. I mean, I don't see how we'll be living here by then, but I digress. Florida is the most expensive state in the United States for home insurance. And
wow,
it is the most
shocking.
Yeah. But the risk, of course, has not stopped people from buying properties. And actually, I'm thankful for that because we're moving.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, so the biggest hurdle that we have is the rising ocean and porous bedrock. As I have been telling people, we live on limestone. So when the sea level rises, it isn't just coming up on the beach that's a problem. It's coming up underneath us, and it is infiltrating, as it says, which can exacerbate high tide flooding, and it also can salinate our inland fresh water. And this is causing huge problems in terms of what's happening in poisoning our inland waters, because now we're seeing huge manatee deaths. We're seeing all these things that are a result of the poisoning, and the salinity is a big part of that problem.
We're going to need a dramatic change very quickly.
Yeah.
And again, Florida has a lot of problems, and not the least of which is the fact that we are a peninsula and we are horrifically overpopulated. I think I told you when my father and his girlfriend recently bought a condo in Naples, and he was talking about, man, these places are so developed. How many people do we have in Florida? Peter, are there 10 million people living in Florida today? And I said, no. How about double that? So to say that this state is overpopulated is an understatement.
It really is.
And to say that Broward County is overpopulated is an understatement.
So it's a problem. So the overpopulation and the concentration in certain areas is exacerbating the problem that would naturally be occurring. So there's that. And then this gets to, once you see this huge thing with climate concerns, you see the different ways that it's really hurting us. So this one thing that I thought was really interesting is that there is this, I don't know how I guess they're just really smart people, but they're actually saving the corals. Mm-hmm. And yet while they're trying to save the corals, so you've got organizations that are going and collecting dying corals, bringing them into facilities to rehabilitate them like
basically
they do to
putting
animals.
Them like in an aquarium type situation.
To rehabilitate them. So they're trying to save. And all the while, the developers are still dredging out to build more.
And this is one of the things about Biden when we talk about how Are there differences between the two political parties? Yes. But honestly, the biggest difference between the Democrats and the GOP is really just a question of the judges. That's basically it. Because when you get right down to it, the fact that they are even worse when they're giving this lip service about how we care about the environment, and then they released a report the other day about the devastation of the offshore drilling, which directly affects the coral, and they're like, no, not a big deal. We're still going to allow it. That's the way it is.
So this is really interesting. So there's this facility, and it's in Orlando, and what they do is there's all different names for the corals, but all the corals that are there were transplanted to what has been dubbed the Florida Coral Rescue Center. So we're actually now having to rescue coral. This is crazy. So the goal is to save their lives so that someday, no one knows when, they or their offspring can be put back to where they live because they are actually needed as part of that ecosystem. Florida is in dire straits without that reef. The corals provide home and hiding place for fish, crabs, and creatures. Like, we need them. That's a very important part of our ecosystem.
Yes.
And so
Very
the fact
much.
that, so one of the name of this thing is that it's called they call this whole problem stony coral tissue loss, because it's you're losing part of our earth. Like, it's really a living part of our earth that's really important. And so it's like, basically they're sustaining a rapid fire. They're comparing it to forest fire. How the disease is spreading amongst the coral underwater is basically the equivalent of a forest fire through a forest. Yeah. And so they're pulling out all of these different species and trying to rehabilitate them so that maybe someday they could retransplant them to where they're supposed to be. This is so sad to me. Like, it's just really sad.
Yeah. And when you, like I said, when you get right down to it, this is all about corporate special interests trying to suck every last ounce out of their territory that they're going after in order to get what they want. And because of the leadership that we have within our state, and because it is detrimentally bad on both sides, this is what happens.
And yet they're still dredging.
Completely.
When they dredge, they're killing the coral.
You're killing the ocean.
Yeah, it's just it's a disaster. And despite the damage so here there was all this damage that's been caused multiple times, and yet they're still doing it, and they can't seem to stop doing it. And it's just it's pathetic. It really is. It's pathetic. Yeah. And this is also now something that is threatening our inland waters. It's all connected, people. It's all connected. And so when you look at what's going in our inland waters, it's just also outrageous. We have amazing fresh inland waters springs in Florida that a lot of people don't know exist here.
And maybe it's best they don't know.
Yeah. And
let's not let them know about it. Let them, because then they'll know about it and then they'll destroy it.
It's a really important place, because this is where that's where the manatees live. And anybody who knows I'm very particular about my manatees.
Should have been the state.
But that's where our drinking water comes from. Right. So all of these things that are happening to our springs are ultimately affecting our drinking water.
Adam is correct.
What did he say?
Well, no, that's not from Steph, but it doesn't stop because there is no short-term incentive to do so.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, it's true. So just for people to realize that we have more than 1,000 springs spread across central and northern Florida in the densest concentration of freshwater springs in the world. So this is a very interesting ecosystem. The best known are 33 first magnitude springs, which produce almost 65 million gallons of fresh water daily. This is the source of our drinking water. So when these things start to get totally, destroyed and salinated, which they're not supposed to be saline, that's the whole point of fresh water. Yep. But it's getting salinated because when you keep doing things that cause the salt water to rise up, it's salinating our water. This is one
of the reasons why, when I hear stories like this, that I consider the prospect of running for Commissioner of Agriculture at some point, because, with all due respect, this is not something that Nikki Fried should be allowed to have happening right now. And this is her job. And unfortunately, she isn't doing it. And that's a problem. And it hurts. It really does, because we're seeing it like in slow motion. It's like a slow motion train wreck. It's coming. You're trying to stop it. And yet the people who could actually pull the brake are not pulling the brake.
Right.
And it sucks.
And it all stems, truthfully, to development and overdevelopment. That's what it is. And then you also have the big agricultural influence in the middle of the state in terms of their effects on our inland waters. And that's also a problem. But really what it comes down to is the same as everything else, is that people are getting very wealthy by doing the things that are hurting our environment, and they're not financially incentivized to stop doing those things.
It's always short-term versus long-term.
Right.
It always has been. It always will be. And that's the difference. But on a bright note, we actually do have a nice story.
Did you see how I said Florier?
Yes, Florier.
Florier.
So we actually do have a good story to conclude the evening with.
Okay, first of all, how cute is that dog? Even though it's not a real dog. I know.
Adorbs.
I know. So
but all dogs pretty much are, except for the dog that looks like a mop. What's the mop dog? What's that dog? You know what I'm talking about?
What, the Commodore sheepdog?
Yeah,
it
looks like a mop. It's like this.
Jason had one of those. They're really not good with children. They bite.
Ah, okay.
They're herders.
There you go.
And
There's
they're
another issue. Okay,
But-
so not every dog is great, but what can I say? I'm a sucker for the canine. Jen obviously is. Our mascot is a dog, so
who is very
she is very much in her element.
She's in her little love nest. It's her little nest, and
100%.
she's sleeping. So this was just one of those feel-good stories. So this dog, last October, ran away. The owner accidentally left the gate open, and the dog left. And they looked and they looked, and they offered a reward, and they just honestly, the dog was 15. Wow. At the time that he got lost. So they just honestly, they assumed he died somewhere. Like after enough weeks of looking, they assumed he died. And then at one point, she was looking on a Facebook post from the Sunshine State Westie Rescue. And there was this disgusting, grungy, filthy dog that she could barely recognize, but somehow she knew was her dog. And it was her dog. And he had just recently been saved from being euthanized by that rescue. Wow. And they got him back. So it was 331 days. First of all, if I had to go 331 days without my dog, I think they'd have to scrape me off the floor. I had a sleepover with my friend the other night at her house, and I didn't have my Lulu. And it really does make I don't sleep as well without Lulu. So I can't imagine what happened here. But anyway, this is our happy story, our happy Florida story. Yay for Sparky. That was his name, is Sparky.
And
yay for Sparky.
What I always like to share with people when it comes to dogs, and again, when I look back on Trump's presidency and I think about all of the things that people would always get so caught up in and pull their hair out.
They missed the most important thing.
Trump was the first president who didn't have a dog
in the White House.
If you think that doesn't say something.
Oh, I think it speaks volumes.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does.
It's weird to say that, but it really does. It's definitely a barometer. And it's funny because you're right. Nobody talks about that. And
I think that's
had
one
a
of the
young
most telling
kid
things.
and had a young kid. All of it. 100%. I think it's very telling. I do. I mean, even with the Clintons, I know that they had the cat.
I don't really want you bringing me up and telling people that I don't like dogs.
You don't like dogs.
I totally like them. I just
don't like dogs.
I don't like to own dogs. They take too much time, too much work, too much effort. But I totally like to pet them. No, that's a white dog, white power right there. Really great. And believe me when I tell you, the canines, they love me.
No, they don't.
They love me.
I can't even fathom. I can't. No, they don't.
They're really incredible. But I noticed that you were talking about my anointed one, Desantis.
Yes.
He's going to be president. No. I'm still president. We're going for term 3. That's what's coming. You can get high. I'm over here. You're down there. You're never going to reach me. Believe me when I tell you, folks, we're totally coming. 24.
You caused
show 24.
I do.
Show. Time's running out, folks. Get ready because I'm coming back, baby.
Trump 24, baby.
We have not only
make America great again.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. You see, she's already got the lingo down. She's already got the lingo. I'm too excited. I almost knocked my face off. Can you believe that?
It's very orange.
But as I said, we have a great slogan, a really great, incredible slogan. Make America great again.
You know what's interesting is Katie had once told me, and this is
Katie, don't care.
Katie Halper,
terrible person,
friend of the show. And she once said to me when we did the Assange telethon, she's like, you've really got your bronzer thing going for you. And I'm like, really, that's cool. But yet here I sit next to you and you are so orange that I look so white next to you. Bring Peter back. He's white.
I'm only orange because we're in the state of Florida and the state of Florida fruit is orange. It's
you were orange before you moved to Florida.
Remember, they can't extradite me to New York. Florida has no extradition. You totally can't take me out of here. But believe me when I tell you, we're going to run for president right out of Florida.
You're not winning.
We're going to the presidential mansion is now Mar-a-Lago. That's what's happening. It's going to be really great.
Yeah, it'll be underwater.
We'll see you really soon. And Make America great again. Again. Don't steal the idea, folks. It's really great.
So there you go. But yes, I do think that was very telling that he never had a dog. And
I do too.
And as Bill Murray, one of the greatest comedians of all time,
I think you
likes to
say
say,
this quote all the
I
time.
love it though. It's one of the best.
But it is true. I mean, I will tell you, if my dog doesn't like somebody, they're not getting too close.
The quote is, I don't trust anybody who doesn't like a dog, but I trust any dog that doesn't like a person. And it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Dogs know. I had a friend and her husband was a psycho and my dog never liked him. She never warmed up to him. She never, and you know, Lulu, even though she's scared when people first come in, once you're here and she knows you, she's generally fairly friendly. Like she really is.
For those of you who are new to the show tonight, and I think we've got a few of you in the audience who haven't been here before. Yes, that is my Trump impression. If you come back on Thursday, I'll give you, I could give them Bernie. I could give them Clinton. I could give you guys a few different things. And here's Lou. Here's the little princess.
She was sleeping. She was having her
beauty
third
rest.
third evening nap of the day. She is a napper. Let me tell you guys, and people who know when I got dogs, I'm very, very one of those people that does research and I want to get a dog that suits my lifestyle, not just because I think they're cute, although she is the cutest dog in the history of the canine species. I digress. I knew that I wasn't going to be out playing Frisbee. I didn't want to have to walk dogs. I didn't want to have to deal with energy. I didn't want a puppy. And so I looked up lazy ass dog breeds. I'm not kidding. This is what I did.
What's
and
her
12, this is a Caton de Toulier.
What's her name?
Lulu.
So everyone who doesn't know, this is
Lulu.
She is really the star of the show. And if you become a patron of our Patreon, you get the Lulu sticker. Isn't that adorable? Lulu,
she's a Caton de Toulier, and which came up as one of the lazy ass dog breeds. And our other dog, interestingly enough, who is a Shih Tzu, which is also on that list. Let me tell you, true to advertising, if you all are looking for a lazy dog, and I mean lazy dog, this is your dog.
But
and it suits me so perfect.
Extremely affectionate.
Yes.
Extremely friendly.
She's a love. Well, she's not really great with strangers. She's got some issues. I got her at 1.5 years. She's kind of crazy and neurotic, which is atypical for this breed. So I highly recommend the breed. Catons they're similar to like, I don't know, like Bijans, Havanese. They're smart. They're very good family dogs. They're very friendly. She's just nuts. I mean, she's got some serious neuroses and separation issues.
Caton de Toulier, Stephanie. That's the name.
COTONDETULEAR. Caton de Toulier.
Make sure you tune in on Thursday evening.
Yes.
We are going to have the real mayor of Buffalo, India Walton. It is going to be a great conversation. We may have an additional guest as well. And check out some of our clips. We posted several of them today. I think you'll find our show very enlightening. Hope you enjoy it.
At least remotely entertaining.
And leave a comment, leave a like, share it. It's all grassroots. Yeah. We really appreciate you guys.
Oh, and I did want to say 1 week from today, guys, we are hosting, so Generational Change is hosting a candidate forum for Florida's congressional seat for District 20,
Next
which
Monday.
is Alcee Hastings' seat. Alcee died, and so now we're having a special election here. We have 4 of the 6 candidates that are going to be here, which we invited all of them.
Mm-hmm. One of them actually turned us down.
That's fine. One we never heard from, and we have 4 coming on, which is fine because the truth is that's enough people. And
if we only have the 4, and the truth is,
so confirmed is. Should I say who we have confirmed?
Yes, as of right now, we do have confirmed Sheila Scherf-Lewis McCormick, Omari Hardy, Commissioner Dale Holness, and State Senator Perry Thurston.
So those
and excuse me, Omari Hardy is a state house representative.
Oh, that's right. Yes, of course. So those 4 will be here next week.
Yes.
We're going to talk about it. The issues that we're prepared to talk about. I said housing, healthcare, education, police reform.
We'll talk about the economy.
And yeah, I mean, that's when I think about like housing, and it's sort of that's connected to me.
Yes.
And then the other thing we wanted to talk about was police reform, and there was one other. Oh, climate crisis.
Yes.
So those are the issues we're going to hit on. We'll see how far we can go. You know, I figure I'll ask one person one question, let someone else answer, and then move questions to other people. If we give everybody a chance to answer every question, we won't cover anything.
100%. But we'll have a format where we'll give them a certain we'll clock them and have an opportunity to rebut. And I think it would be good to have sort of like an open forum where if you want to ask a question of, if one of the people who is running wants to question another one of the candidates who are running, I think we should have that. I think
that's fine. But this is not, it's a discussion.
Yes.
This is not a debate. It's not a gotcha.
No.
It's simply trying to educate voters what these people are about, what kinds of policies they want to work for. And that's really all we're doing here. This is not incendiary in any way. Everyone knows that we're very supportive of Sheila. They know that we also very much like Omari. Those are the two non-corporate candidates.
Yep.
There's no secret there, but this is all just about people getting a chance to see. So if you guys, and we can take questions. If people put in questions that are pertinent to the conversation at the time and are not offensive, I'd be happy to put out live questions. Like, that's fine.
Pro B, welcome to the show. Mr. Cousins was just on a little while ago. You will be able to watch if you want to, pull it back. But as soon as we conclude, which will be in the next minute, you'll be able to watch it, the full live stream, and view it from whatever point you want to. Hope you find it enjoyable.
I'm going to put up a bunch of clips tomorrow. I have like a few clips to do that'll go up tomorrow. We had a few today. We've been between producers, kind of like we're having we're working through it. So I
am Jen's work husband. I am not her real
did somebody ask?
Yes, somebody asked.
Look, that's a whole, look, nothing makes it is worse than when people ask if he's my son.
Oh, well, at least, at least I don't look that young today. So,
well, no, that's the worst. That's
Fair
when
enough.
I look at people and I'm like, no, he's
not.
my work husband. Although what's funny is that my actual husband says that he and I fight like married people.
But
you and I fight way more than I ever fight with Jason.
But ultimately, we managed to put together, I think, a pretty good show.
We have our moments. We're just trying to add some good to the world using the platform that we have. That's all we're trying to do. We have no other agenda. And I will say this, my only real agenda, and I will say I do this. I do use this platform to meet people that I want to meet. I do. I do. I'll have look, that's how I got to meet Bo. Like, I have people come on the show that I really like. I have a means to invite them to get to know them. So I do. That is my ulterior motive.
We've got a lot of big guests coming up.
Yes.
We're continuing to grow the show. We've got, some people you haven't heard of. You got a lot of people you have heard of.
We have Andrew Yang on the calendar.
Andrew Yang will be coming in a few weeks. So
Ron Placone
will be on as well. We really appreciate you guys. Thursday, 8 p.m. We'll be here. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a great night.